And there's the.
What do you think about that?
Probably what the price on how they do.
Right now, it's the free version.
Yeah.
So- All right, it is 6 p.m. exactly. Welcome, everyone, and I call the May 1st Judiciary and Public Safety Committee meeting to order. We have a quorum present this evening. So with that, welcome, everyone. It's a nice full room. And it's fantastic. I love that. Hopefully everyone in the audience there, you had access to the agenda so you can follow along. All right, perfect. All righty, so with that, we have completed item 1, which is called order. Item 2 on the agenda this evening is consideration of minutes of the April 3rd, 2023 meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the minutes of the April 3rd, 2020 meeting.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? That passes. All right, we're going to close item number 2 on the agenda. Moving to item number 3 on the agenda. General comments. I don't really have too many this evening, other than I know that we have a variety of resolutions and other things to talk about, and I think it might be a good opportunity just to talk about the process that we have here at JPS, so we're all understanding. The first is when we introduce it, I will call that item. So item number 2, right now. And I'll ask the sponsors on the resolution to come up and briefly talk about the resolution. The reason for that is, as a body, we want to make sure that we understand what we're putting a motion forward on. So it's an introduction. Then I would look to one of our members or myself to formally move to consider it. And at that point, we would then vote on that, and then we go into discussion. Okay, so it's a little different, but that I believe is a more apt way of going through it. Okay, and it kind of helps us understand what we're really talking about, starting with the why, if you will. Other than that, we actually only have one opportunity this evening for public comments. I will start in the room for public comments and then go to Zoom. If you are on the agenda, you don't have to speak during public comments. If you're not on the agenda, would be a perfect time for you to speak your mind on whatever item is being discussed. All right. Okay. With that, I'm going to close item number 3 and opening to item number 4, public comments within the jurisdiction of this committee. Again, I will start within the room. Anyone like to speak? One. All right, quiet group. All right, and I think we have someone on Zoom who would like to speak. So we're gonna try to, I think we have one. I think it's Karen Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Okay, my name is Karen D. Powers. I'm a Winnebago County Supervisor in District 25. I live at 2563 Village Lane in Oshkosh. My comment is about, you're discussing the sheriff speaking or reading the Independence Declaration of Independence on the 4th of July. And I believe that a year ago, we voted to make that something that would be a standing item that we would just assume was going to happen. And I was wondering, there was not much on the agenda as to what you wanted to talk about, but I think we did vote for this as supervisors a year ago, that this would be a standing item that would happen. Thank you, sir.
Yes, and if I may speak to that very briefly, that item is not to consider doing it the item is to discuss the logistics around it. Last year, there were a few things that were added at the very last minute. I wanted to talk that through so we had an opportunity to think through and plan what it is and what it isn't. As well as to make sure if there's anyone else within JPS who would like to participate, they get an opportunity to do so. So it's more of a touch base prior to doing it, rather than a resolution formalizing the actual action. As Supervisor Powers mentioned, we voted on that last year, that it's essentially running indefinitely. So hopefully that helps with that.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. All right. With that, we're going to close item number 4 on the agenda. Boy, we are just moving fast. Opening up item number 5, which is communications shared by committee members. I'd like to speak. Supervisor Flo.
Yes, so the task force on structure review met on April 27th. We discussed a couple of possibilities for committee restructuring or reorganization. We haven't obviously come to a decision on any of that, on what we would recommend to this. We have decided to move ahead with a survey for every member of the county board of their thoughts on our committee structure and what they would like to see changed, if anything. That should be in everybody's email inbox. I sent that to Julie, and Julie got that out to all of you guys. We are looking to have another meeting in advance of our May 25th meeting to discuss a similar survey for department heads and their interactions with their committees. So that's what we currently have. Our next regularly scheduled general meeting will be on May 25th. A short meeting about a survey for department heads will come soon. We're figuring out a date for that. Once that's decided on, we'll let the clerk know, and that'll be posted for everybody to see if they want to come there. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak? Yes, Supervisor Duffy.
Yes, so on Friday, April 21st, I went down to Madison for the Chief Justice Summit on Mental Health. That was held at the Holiday Inn at the American Center in Madison. And there was about, I sat next to Oshkosh Police Chief Dean Smith, as well as Officer Scott Zapata from the Oshkosh Police, and Nicole Morley from Public Defender's Office, and Heather Faust from the County Health and Human Services Department. And we went through a couple of forums. First one was kind of a roundtable discussion with Attorney General Call, State Senator Jesse James, State Representative Dora Drake, State Public Defender Kelly Thompson, District Attorney Eric Toney, and Chief Dean Smith. They spoke a little bit about mental health and the constant revolving door of those with mental health conditions to those who are to going back and forth between being incarcerated, being connected to services, and being back to incarcerated and going back to being serviced. And figured out what, so it was kind of a roundtable discussion of what we could possibly do to look into that for all counties throughout the state of Wisconsin. The next forum was somebody from Dr. Margie Belfour from the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Arizona College of Medicine to discuss a little bit about what Arizona did and their model for mental health, and then followed up with a bunch of county supervisors and judges from around the state of Wisconsin traveling down to Miami, Florida to take a look at the Miami model. And the final roundtable discussion was simply put a roundtable discussion of our county, of what we can do for Winnebago. Obviously, we have a specific special problem in Winnebago County, with this county being the last bastion of state-run mental health institutes with the Winnebago Mental Health Institute there. And we do have a lot of those that are being brought in from other counties into this county. And if it turns into a criminal justice issue, Winnebago County foots the entire bill for that trial. And that can turn into something that's very expensive, and obviously it's not really going to be beneficial, especially if they do have mental health conditions. So Judge Mike Gibbs was also there too. And On May 19th, Judge Mike Gibbs, me and Officer Zapata, Nicole Morley from the Public Defender's Office, and Eric Spar will be meeting to think about what Winnebago County can do. And so it'll be another brainstorming session of what we can do. There is some models out there in regards to mental health courts. The Council on State Governments has a website available that actually has a whole tutorial on how mental health courts work. We'll take a look at that to see if that's a model that we actually want to approach with Winnebago County. So with that in mind, we'll think about that for on May 19th, whenever we meet. I believe it's going to be at noon on that day. So, yeah, I do have the minutes in regards to the previous Safe Streets meeting, which happened also that day on Friday, April 21st. And we've got this upcoming May 4th at 10 a.m., branch 5 at the 3rd floor. There's going to be a drug court graduation ceremony, commencement ceremony. There's going to be 4 more graduates. It will be in person, but there will be a Zoom option available as well. If anyone's interested, I could email the information in regards to that. Anyone from the public is welcome to attend. I plan to attend. And we've got 32 people enrolled in the jail reintegration program, 18 people in group. And for the Vivitrol program, we have 23 injections given and 28 requests. For the 24/7 alcohol program, we've got 92 open cases, and the 24/7 drug court program, we've got 70 open cases. And for the Winnebago County Connect, we've got 53 open cases. That's all I have.
When was this graduation?
That's on this upcoming May 4th at 10 a.m.
And where was the Zoom information at?
That I can email out.
That'd be great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Great.
Yeah. Yeah.
In your new journal.
What's that?
Nothing else?
Nothing else.
All right. Anyone else? Okay, with that, we are going to close item number 5 on the agenda and open up item number 6, which is update from Corporation Counsel. Mayor Miller. Thank you.
Good evening. So Supervisor Stafford asked me to give you folks an update as to what's been going on with Corporation Counsel. So since January 2023, we have opened 138 new mental health cases. There have been 23 emergency detention probable cause hearings. There have been 17 three-party probable cause hearings. That's a situation where, let's say, we have a relative and parents are maybe concerned or neighbors are concerned. So there is a 3-party petition that is brought. So we have that. So that's been 17. Mind you, this is since January 1. We have had 19 final hearings held. We have had 33 extension hearings held. Now, mind you, this is all in the mental health area. So what happens is, once a person is under commitment, after a certain period of time, if the doctors believe there is a need to extend the commitment, an extension has to happen. And obviously the person is afforded counsel, public defender, or whoever, and a hearing is held. So again, since January 1, we've had 33 extension hearings held. We've had 1 de novo hearing held. That is a situation where we go in front of a court commissioner and perhaps there's a disagreement as to the result. So the person can de novo the hearing to a circuit court judge. So we've had 1 of those. We've had 3 contested pre-trial conferences, and we have had 3 mental health jury trials. So that's in the area of mental health. I should also point out, as Supervisor Deckarding was referencing, we had one of our attorneys provide basically an update regarding mental health treatment in our community to the Oshkosh Police Department. And I believe the district attorney's office was also involved. And so that was actually, I think, pretty well received. The attorney, Winnebago, who would come here at the last meeting, put on the presentation. And in order to get people engaged, she started asking questions. Like the first one, a person cannot be placed on both a Chapter 51 hold and charged with criminal charges for the same event. True or false? Does anyone want to?
False.
Correct. Correct. A person can be placed both on a Chapter 51 hold and arrested. Those systems are different systems. They have different functions, both of which are working towards the same goal, which is to get the person. Okay. I'll give you one more since you're batting 100 or 1,000. Crisis, not law enforcement, has the power to initiate a Chapter 51 hold. A crisis means the behavioral health portion of DHS. So crisis, not law enforcement, has the power to initiate a Chapter 51 hold.
Yes, true.
False.
False.
Law enforcement holds the power to initiate a Chapter 51 hold if the person is mentally ill, a danger to himself or others, or there are no options for a safety plan available. Anyway, I'll stop, but that.
No, that's really interesting.
Yeah, she put this together, and again, I was told, I was not there, but it was so.
Are we able to see the presentation,
Sure,
like in its entirety?
Yeah.
I'd love to see it.
I could certainly ask Attorney Cocky to come maybe the next time if you'd
That-
like to see it.
Well, do you think that's worthwhile? Anyone?
Yes.
I think that'd be great.
Melody, make sure I don't get to ask her. Okay. All right.
Just a quick question, when
Sure.
you were going through the stats.
I've only
um,
gotten through mental health.
I know, but through the mental health
Yeah.
stats, I'm just curious, how is that tracking versus last year? Are we seeing more, less, or about the same?
I can tell you that last year, at least for the total numbers, we had over 400 mental commitments. So this is as of April 28th, there were 138. So we're pretty close. We're pretty,
Plus, probably tracking a little bit
a
more.
little bit more, a little bit more.
Thank you.
Sure.
Oh, one other question.
And how does that, if you know it, if you don't, that's fine. How does that track with other counties that are comparable to our size and the area? Do we stick out because of Winnebago mental health, or is this more of something that we're seeing across? the board?
We stick out, I believe, because of the Wisconsin resource. Because what happens is there are prisons across the state. And prisons across the state send, if their prisoners are having a mental health crisis, they are sent to the Wisconsin Resource Center. So we may be having hearings involving people who are residents, not of Winnebago County, but across the state, right? And again, I just want to be clear, at least for our section, I'm not talking about the piece that I'm sure Supervisor Duffy was referencing. We do bill those counties for the attorney's time when we are doing the commitment. But there's a question as to whether all of the resources that we are spending towards this are really being paid for, because it is an enormous task. So in any event, but
And our billable hours, what I remember, it's under $100 an hour, right?
no, it's more than 100.
It is?
Yes,
Okay.
because we are billing the state, but there's another piece too. Under the statute, court counsel is mandated to go forward with mental commitments. However, the statute is very clear. It can be done in the county of the person's residence or the county where the person is placed. So if there is someone from a jail and or a prison and they are moved to Wisconsin Resource Center, their jurisdiction can lie here, but the statute is equally clear. Jurisdiction can also lie in the county of residence of that person. So if that person is from Milwaukee, Milwaukee by statute could also pursue this.
Thank you.
Sure.
Please forgive the naive question. Based on what you were just saying, the number of cases that you just said, how many of those are actually being billed out? I guess the real question is, how many of those are Winnebago County residents?
I don't have the numbers directly on the top of my head. I can certainly tell you, but I would say the vast majority are not. I bet you, and again, I'm talking off the top of my head. I really would prefer to look at the numbers. I would say at least 60% are not Winnebago, and I'm being conservative.
And the only thing we're billing is the attorney hours?
We're also billing paralegal hours.
Okay, because my real question is Winnebago County being reimbursed for everything that they should be? And if not, how do we explore that? And that can be a conversation at another time.
Well, I will tell you, there's another element, is aside from the actual trying of the case. I mean, it starts with a probable cause hearing. If probable cause is found, then you go to a final hearing. And then assuming that happens, then there may be an extension down the pike. But there's also a piece in terms of appeals. There are a ton of appeals that are being filed for mental commitment cases. And our attorneys are filing briefs, filing responses to petitions for review that are submitted to the Supreme Court. So it's a significant portion of the practice that we're talking about. So that's the world in Office of Corporation Counsel regarding mental health commitments since January 1, 2023. We also, as you all know, handle guardianships. We've had 14 cases opened in 2023. Now, mind you, this does not include the carryover cases that we've had from other years, because oftentimes guardianships get carried over. We've had 11 full due process hearings. We have had 18 protective placements. That means that if the person is a danger to himself or others. We have had 8 emergency protective placement hearings. We've had 4 successor guardianship hearings. We have had 27 guardianships, and we've had 7 juvenile guardianships. In the world of children in need of protection or services and terminations of parental rights, to date for 2023, we have had 10 new CHIPS cases opened. We have had 7 termination of parental rights hearings. We have had 43 CHIPS hearings. Now, when there is a child in need of protection or services case, the statutes mandate reviews on a year, actually a 6-month basis. So that would mean that we're going in front of the court to tell the court if there have been any changes of circumstances. We have, the parents are there. We go through conditions of return. The parents need to try to meet these conditions, because the goal is typically reunification if it can be done. So we have that. We've had temporary physical custody hearings. We've had 9, and we've had 4. In terms of documents drafted, we have drafted 126 petitions. That could be involving children in need of protection or services, terminations of parental rights, guardianships, protective placements. So 126. There have been 307 orders drafted. Just to sort of give you an idea, we have issued 181 subpoenas. We have issued 134 witness lists, because we need to provide witness lists if we are going to trial on these commitments or on these CHIPS cases. We have prepared 6 appellate briefs, again, what I was referring to in terms of mental commitments or terminations of parental rights. And we've drafted 5 orders to show cause. In the area of legislation, there have been 76 pieces of legislation drafted. There have been 7 county board meetings attended. That includes special orders meetings. We have attended 21 committee, commission, or board meetings other than the Board of Supervisors meetings. We have had 3 980 meetings and hearings. That does not include the meetings that we went to with the city when we were trying to get permission to go forward. Unicode. So we, as you know, have been working on recodification. We were waiting for the vendor to get back to us because we were told that we were gonna get our material by mid-April. We have not received it yet. We inquired, and in fairness, we did not make the mark because we wanted to try to give it to them by January 1. We didn't give it to them until mid-January. So we had spoken to them, and they indicated that they are looking into it and they will get back to it shortly.
So we don't know.
We don't know. But hopefully we'll know soon. Because the understanding was it was going to be mid-April. We would have 3 months. And then we would be again meeting with the department heads and the various chairs of the committees to go through the code. But again, we haven't received it yet, but we have basically inquiries in to say when we're gonna get it. So
And that one's tough because if it's delayed too much longer, we're now talking about budget as well for the departments. So that's a lot to do at one time.
We were hoping to have it done by January. We gave it to them January, it's like mid-January. And they talked about 3 to 4 months, so January, February, March, April, so May. So today should have been the time, but I'm hoping we can get it in the next couple of weeks. That's recodification. And then there were various other meetings. And all my staff, including myself, we've gone to 94 meetings. That includes, meetings with the WRC, Winnebago Mental Health. When Hannah went to the police department and made the presentation, so that was listed as 94 issues. We've had 8 land use and zoning issues addressed. We have had 284 contract reviews since January 1. We've had attempted collections on agreements 1. There are 74 pending foreclosures, and we have had 9 disallowed claims. So, and then as I said, we've also had trainings. We are training new employees from our office. I think you know that we've had some turnover. And so we're basically creating training manuals and updating training manuals. We are trying to organize a manual for our appeals to make things easier on that piece. In terms of new Department of Human Service employees, we are providing legal orientation so they know what is involved with working with our office. And we've been trying to deal with witness preparation also. So that's basically what's been happening since January 1st.
So just a quick question, actually, 2 questions. First is, how many attorneys and paralegals do you have?
We have 3 attorneys, including myself, and we have 3 paralegals and an administrative assistant.
And I'm just curious, if I were to look at this list, right? You have the items that are required by statute that we're doing. And then we have other legal matters, and then we have the board. And I'm curious, how much time do you spend on you meaning the department, spend on board issues?
I primarily handle all board issues.
Okay.
I am asked to and basically go into court when my attorneys have conflicts so that I would have to go in and handle a matter. So I can tell you that's basically what we have. So we have an attorney who primarily looks at contracts, although I'm again pitching in on that. We have an attorney who primarily does mental health work. But again, if there are conflicts, and there are conflicts because that attorney Kotke had worked for the public defender. So if she had represented someone, she cannot a year later go and prosecute the same person. So that happens. But yeah, I primarily handle the county board and committees.
Right. So I don't know if anyone's ever asked this of you. So I'm gonna ask right now. Because I'm curious as I'm thinking, looking at all this. How do you feel? Like there's a lot that's going on. To me, it's always eye-opening to really go through all the stats, what the department is. I mean, how do you feel about the workload as it's considering both like board stuff and the other kinds of legal things that we have to do?
We have a busy practice. There is no question. It's a great training ground. People, I think you could ask Melody. She actually worked at the WRC before she started working at OCC. So she's seen both. I think that her learning curve has gone through the roof. I don't mean to the word.
No, I think if I was asked that same question, I primarily work on CHIPS cases. But even my workload, as well as doing the legislative work, but to try and compare that to our attorneys who do all the different areas that we handle. I don't know how they keep it all straight. It is a lot to keep, keep organized, and I mean, we help them as much as we can, but they're the ones that are going into court to argue it.
Right. And I always struggle when I'm gonna say this very cautiously. No, it's fine. I always struggle when I talk to you because I know that, my questions from a county board point of view is important. But, as I think about some of the real significant things that the county does, I don't want to waste your time or your department's time in that. And that's why I ask, and I don't know if you feel like, especially with this new board being so new and we have great ideas, if you feel like you need more. Like as we go through budgeting, do you feel like, especially on the board side, it would be useful to have an additional resource?
We are busy. There is no question. And I will tell you, I had gotten some statistics from some other counties, from other corporation council law, to see where we were in terms of the system. Now, Brown County has a population of almost 270,000. And according to the information I have, they have 8 total attorneys. So what do we have? A population of 174,000? But they only have 2 support staff in fairness. Racine has a population of 196,896. So 197,000. They have 9 attorneys. And they have 3 support staff. Allegheny, 191,004. They have 5 attorneys. Okay, I have a population of Winnebago, 171,623, and we have 3 attorneys. Neosha has close to us, 168,000. They have 4 attorneys, but they only have 1 support staff. Rock, 164,381. They have 8 attorneys, and they have support staff, which doesn't seem right to me, 0.25. So.
Yeah, maybe like some sort of support administration.
So we do the best we can. I will say that a lot of times there's juggling because, and Melanie knows this, I will go into the office on a Monday and say, these are the 5 things I want to get done. And within 5 minutes of Monday, when I get there, that list has changed because emergencies pop up. And while everything you may ask is really important, based on what I'm seeing, I'm thinking, okay, yes, it's important, but I've got to put it behind something else that takes precedence.
And that's part of what I'm saying too, is that there's so much going on and there is a priority. And I think it's important for county boards to understand.
So I
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Supervisor,
Yes, thank you. Do you have any contract attorneys? There were contract attorneys that were addressed in the past. Are there contract attorneys in this work?
We do. We have an attorney who helps us with terminations of parental rights. We do. And I will also tell you that in our budget, there was some money so that a couple of weeks ago, we were just up to our eyeballs in alligators. We had to get out briefs. There were like 5 commitment hearings in one afternoon. And then there was a lot going on. And we contracted with an attorney to help us do some of the mental commitments. But that was an exception because we try to do most of this ourselves. I will also say that when I have an area that I do not have expertise in, I have reached out to other firms like Atoli's, and they have been a godsend to us. So yes, because I don't want to mislead, we do have help. But there's still a lot. No question.
Any other? Yes.
There's been a couple of things that I'm seeking some clarification on some troubling things that I've either noticed or people have called out to my attention. So as far as county rules and state statute, what constitutes a public record?
Well, let me actually give you the statute that would perhaps answer your question. So with that chapter 19, addresses public records, actually, and let me start. If you go to 19.31, which is the Declaration of Policy, it says it's declared to be the public policy of this state that all persons are entitled to the greatest possible information regarding the affairs of government and the official acts of those officers and employees who represent them. Further, providing persons with such information is declared to be an essential function of a representative government and an integral part of the routine duties of officers and employees whose responsibility is to provide such information. To that end, with stats 1932 to 1937 shall be construed in every instance with a presumption of complete public access consistent with the conduct of government business. The denial of public access generally is contrary to the public interest, and only in an exceptional case may access be denied. And then if you go to 1932, which is the definition section, it defines record. Record means any material on which written, drawn, printed, spoken, visual, or electromagnetic information or electronically generated or stored data is recorded or preserved, regardless of physical form or characteristics, that has been created or is being kept by an authority. So that is the statute that defines public records.
You send me again the definition.
Do you want me to? 19.32, paragraph 2.
This sort of answers from what I understand. I want to clarify then, would a Facebook post generated by the emergency management or the sheriff's office be considered public record?
Yes.
Who are the custodians of those records?
Sorry,
Who are the custodians of records?
it would be the department that generated it.
Would that apply to Facebook posts?
I believe it would. Now, I will also say the county clerk also is the custodian of certain records, such as
election materials.
Right.
Concern is that it appears that there are some records that were not accessible. Deleted. And there really is no way to track that they were actually deleted. That's my concern. So that's one of the reasons I asked, who's the custodian of record? So if somebody posts a Facebook post and that post has been deleted, say by the sheriff's department, there's, from what I am understanding, we don't have a protection through an open records request to actually get that.
Well, I know,
Can't guarantee that that post was even there.
well, I know that if there are posts put up, the county needs to retain a record of those posts. Of all posts that were put up.
So, okay. Then let me clarify. So it's the sheriff's department. Who is then the ultimate custodian of record? Above the sheriff's department, the emergency management department, above coroner, who ultimately, who holds those records?
I would say that if there is an inquiry, let's say for the coroner or whatever, they would go through their records. They would probably go to IT and say, can you help me get these records? And then they would release the records.
Okay, because my question is when during an open records request, it was my understanding that we can't guarantee that all of the records were actually housed because of the way they're being stored.
I can tell you that the social media policy that the board adopted addressed the fact that posts would be retained. Now, they can. You have a social media policy?
Yeah.
Right, I understand what the policy says. My concern is when asking for those records.
Perhaps, because I feel like,
Saying it wrong.
no, I'm tracking with you, Supervisor, but perhaps we next month have a discussion on this specific thing.
That's fine. That's fine.
I just feel like we don't want to get too far out in the weeds.
Absolutely.
And actually, Melanie Walter just pointed out, under record retention in the social media policy, it talks about the information technology department will retain appropriate public records.
Okay. So then perhaps we have a discussion just to clarify next meeting.
Could we make that an agenda item?
Yes.
Thank you.
And so just so we hit, and I want this fall. There is no question that like a social media post unequivocally is a public record. The requester gets to see the records unless disclosure is barred by statute, by common law, by the public balancing check, which is whether the public's interest in disclosure, strong interest in disclosure, is overcome by the public's greater interest in non-disclosure. But that's the law. But again, I will tell you, departments will contact our department if they have a question of, oh, do I need to compile information to respond to this public records request? And the law is clear. We are not obligated to create a record that did not exist.
Right.
That is not saying that if there is a record that existed, that it does not have to be provided, assuming again, it's not barred by those three items that I referenced. So.
Okay, so let's stop
That's fine.
at this point for that.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I think there's probably a good discussion to have to get some clarity on this. So it gives us an opportunity to review those policies and make sure that there's nothing that we should be looking at from a resolution point of view to provide more clarity. Because social media isn't going away. And I think probably would be a good use of our efforts to make sure that we're very clear on how we're handling this as a community and who the people are that are responsible ultimately.
So can I just, so what is the concern? Just so I want to make sure that I understand it. The fact that, yeah, what is your concern? I don't want to put words in your
That
mouth.
not all records are being retained.
And there's not a process in place to
Right.
ensure. Am I right in that?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have any questions on which?
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other?
Department head from IT wants to talk.
Oh, okay. Please do. However, is it,
I can make one comment.
okay, let's keep it brief because
Yeah,
I'd love to have you back though, next meeting. We could talk about this as much as you want.
so for social media, every Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, whatever account IT is made aware of, we have a copy of every post for 7 years. Or we have a copy for 7 years. The institution, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, may have it for perpetuity. I have no idea. There are two things that can happen. We can take it down per our policy, and that is a rare thing, but our archive system does not indicate that. So if you know what post you're looking for, we can show you that it was there. If it's gone, it's taken down. The institution can also take it down per their policies. If Facebook says this is violating something per our rules, they can take it down without us even knowing as well. But we have a copy of everything that was there. If it's not there, it was taken down. If that clears it up.
That helps. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right, anything else from the committee? Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, that closes item number 6. We are now opening item number 7. Update from medical examiner's office and fentanyl overdoses. Joe Bremer, please come up. And Sheriff, if you have anything to add as part of this conversation, please do so. Just so you all know, this started when Sheriff had shared some information on some fentanyl, the fentanyl issues that we have at the county. And then we started bringing in medical examiner, and I figured it would be better to have both of them together and have a formal review of that. So that's the purpose of this item. So it's all yours.
Good evening, gentlemen. Can I start by saying the coroner/medical examiner's office does not have any social media accounts?
One less thing to worry about.
Brought in as an example. Kind of giving an update on where we're at with our numbers for overdoses. As of the end of April, we have 11 confirmed overdoses now. 10 of those 11 do include fentanyl in it. We have 6 pending cases waiting for toxicology. 4 of those have had positive either rapid urine screens, or one we actually have a tox report back on. We just don't have a final report. 4 of those 6 pending also have fentanyl. So I don't know what specific questions you're looking for, and that's why I figured you'd join me.
I just, full disclosure, I have engaged with Cheryl on some of the stats that I saw. Sheriff, am I allowed to mention some of this? Okay. I saw that if I understood first quarter of this year, there was an increase of seizure of 600, a little more than 600 grams of fentanyl, as well as other substances. And I understand that it's very difficult to put a number of people that might have saved. But it is most definitely thousands upon thousands. in order to create awareness, you mentioned another drug that I can't pronounce that is also coming in with fentanyl that I don't remember seeing on the report.
Xylazine. Xylazine is a large animal tranquilizer. And we have had a couple positive cases, fatals over the last couple of years, but it is extremely prevalent. Like in Pennsylvania, 90% of their product has it. There's a lot of other states surrounding us. And the last I had heard, Milwaukee had 17 fatal overdoses in less than 7 days. That was within this last month, and they believe that will probably show up xylazine as well. Not confirmed yet, but that's the belief.
If I may just kind of piggyback off that, I was gonna mention that, I was told about xylazine at the last Safe Streets meeting. It's incredibly concerning because it's a sedative that's related to ketamine, it's immune to market. So in terms of mitigation, and I would ask the sheriff about this, is there any sort of plan, because I'm sure you've seen your fair share of ketamine overdoses. How do you go about that instead of administering Narcan, what you guys do instead?
The only thing you could do is protect their airway. The CNS depressant. Well, it slows down the heart rate, it slows down respiration. No, they're working on that right now, but there's no, it's not meant for human consumption in any manner. It is, it's a large animal tranquilizer, and most veterinarians have moved away from it because they're a much safer sedative for the animals that they treat. And it's
Sure.
not scheduled yet either.
Did you have anything additional to add on this?
It would just be general CPR procedures that we would follow. I'm told True Narc will pick up this particular product. You're going to get a demonstration soon with that, but so that's helpful. But yeah, I mean, it's when we start to have ways to mitigate certain drugs, and a new drug comes out.
What are your thoughts on, just for news last week, that they're looking to do Narcan over the counter? Do you feel like that's going to help at all, or?
Wasn't it already?
Oh,
Or
it's-
not yet?
it is, yeah.
Oh, it is. Oh, I must have misunderstood that.
The only thing I'll say about Narcan vending machines, I've heard that, you know, they want to put them in high schools possibly. At some point, we become complicit, I believe, in perpetuating drug use. Have to be careful that we're not doing that we're not making it easy. I don't want anybody to die, certainly. But there are certain ways. We hand out Narcan to anyone that wants, any of the inmates that are leaving our facility. I don't know that we want to put a vending machine in our rotunda here with that same product. At some point, I just believe we become complicit in drug use.
Any other questions?
I
Yes.
guess for me, that's kind of a slippery slope of harm reduction, right? Because, you know, we can talk about harm reduction with something like Vivitrol, but if we're gonna put Narcan vending machines, are we creating a wall hazard?
Right.
There's a possibility of that. And I know there may be some different opinions on that, but that's something I would be concerned about.
Right, it's sort of like the IEDs that you have in cars that stop people from driving drunk when they have to blow into it. Our 24/7 alcohol program that we started now given to social services required sobriety all the time. And much like Vivitrol, it does the same thing. It requires sobriety all the time. I could just borrow somebody's car. I don't have to be sober when I'm driving. There's a lot of ways around the IED. Much the same with drug use. Vivitrol is the only opioid drug that will stop the effects of opioid. So there's no sense, and alcohol. So there's no sense in using it.
Any other comments or questions on fentanyl? All right. Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. We're going to close item 7 and then open up item 8, sheriff's report.
Okay, I'll try to, I know you guys got a big agenda. Budget variances, I sent them to you. I did not get any questions. I think probably, the labor piece is the one that's the largest. You can see that we were over in overtime, but we were under in regular pay. We were over in comp time payout, and all in all, it washed out to, some savings for us. However, we are getting much better in the hiring of employees, so we're seeing some success. Most concerning, though, is the probability of retirements in December. That's natural. I mean, we have 28-year employees. We want them to enjoy their retirements as well. They work very hard for it.
How many are we expecting that will be retired?
Plenty of 6. Yeah, so we're the paid internship is working well. We have 3 starting this month. From that, we have 5 applications for the fall semester, so that would be 5 starting in December. Along with our regular hiring, I hope to be able to absorb those retirements as well.
So questions. You mentioned the overtime, and that's something that's, when you look at state correctional institutions, overtime is becoming a massive piece of DCI's budget. Are you seeing, I mean, you mentioned this in the budget variances, are you seeing that? And then the next thing I want to ask is AB 28, which was recently passed by the Assembly, which would extend the retirement benefits for state jailers to correctional officers that we have here in our jail.
Yes.
Could you explain the impact of that and how it will help us in the future?
There is no impact because our correctional deputies are sworn protected already. So nothing changes for them. It's one of the few things that sets us apart from other, we're one of 7 in the state that have sworn protected deputies. For those that opt to go into the sworn protected, like out of Gaming County, the employee will pay the share of the difference between general and protected, as well as their own share that they're already paying. So there is some substantial investment by the employee. I'm not convinced that it's going to make a big difference for those particular counties. I don't know that someone can absorb a 4 or 5% hit to their bottom line, because that's what it would be. At least. And the other question was about overtime.
Yes.
Overtime has always been part of our budget, certainly. But with the vacant positions, it becomes more prevalent, and employees now are much prefer time off than what they do to overtime. When I started, it was different. But so addressing the the vacancies even becomes more important for us and a higher priority.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Lieutenant Darren Rice is going to give you a TrueNarc demonstration. It has been used already. It was used in the jail. We tested cocaine. It tested positive. I don't know what the circumstance was. It just found in a search.
I believe it was just found in pre-book, so somebody got rid of it before it was discovered on them.
Yeah, that happens. They'll drop stuff in there.
Anybody want to handle the pack? Yeah, this is TrueNarc noise. Again. Dropping my gloves. Trying to power up here.
Oh, okay.
You can sell, oops, uses. It's got an internal laser.
Okay.
And it will focus the laser at the edge of the cone here. To the product, send that back. It cites the molecules and whatever substance you have, sends it back. It's analyzed internally, and then there's a database of over 500 different compounds that it will recognize.
So we can go through a scan sequence. It's got the little plastic cover here. So that will tell it that there is a plastic material that it should be registering.
Yep. We're all very, I'm sorry for everyone else, extremely.
We'll go through a test sequence, make sure it's working properly. And we've had this for about 2 weeks. Right now, I've done the online training. There was a little bit of a delay with the company sending a trainer out. So in June, we're gonna have the trainer here, but all of our officers are gonna go through the online training in advance of that. So this should be operational very soon.
And then how?
We're gonna probably charge it every day. The battery life obviously is gonna be weather conditions, use. So I'm gonna angle this. There's,
Sheriff, was the battery included in that warranty or whatever that we did, or is that something that could put in
I don't know.
separate or even next?
I'll check to find out.
battery should be part of the
Yeah,
warranty.
okay, good.
All right, so I've got 2 samples here, some sort of pottery type substance. Obviously, we don't know what it is, and if we cannot open this up and expose ourselves to it, we would what the increase in fentanyl, very minimal amounts can be dangerous. So that was actually what prompted the test today. There was concern that it may be fentanyl, so we did it under a fume hood in the Evans area.
So does it have to touch the bag?
There's a 2.2 millimeter cone that the laser creates, and you want the laser to be into the highest density of the product. So I will hold it against the cone. The light indicates that the laser's been activated.
Oh, okay.
That fails. It should have given me a result. Let's try this again. So it sent the sample back. It's now analyzing it to figure out what exactly we're dealing with. So this is just acetaminophen, brushed up acetaminophen, but somebody could be trying to pass it off as an actual drug. Go through another.
I think you answered this as well. We were discussing the purchase of it. Many of the drugs that are coming in overdoses are 3 and 4 and 5 combinations.
Right.
Will that tell you all 3 or 4 or 5 at once, or does it pick the main
It
ingredient?
will generally kind of focus on the main ingredient, and it will, if this were cocaine and fentanyl and they weren't mixed real well, depending on where I put the sample, it's going to pick up whatever's most prevalent in that sample. But it definitely gives us some advance warning that we should be concerned about something else. All right, so we passed our test, and we should be running a test pre and post analyzing just to make sure that the system is working correctly. I'm not gonna run another check on it. Scan this product. It's not because the laser there. We have baking soda, so a cutting agent that would potentially be used.
Very, very good.
Very quick.
Yeah.
Any questions?
How many times have you used it in the field?
Just the one time,
Just
and
the one?
Aaron's the only one that's.
I'm the only one trained for the training.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we're rolling it out to all of our officers. We had to wait until July. I think July 12th is the date that they could sign the training.
Okay.
Everybody else to it.
They're selling quite a few of these.
Are they?
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
It's so dangerous.
That one right now.
And we're gonna track that, let you know how often it's used, where it's used. If we need a second unit, we'll talk to you about that. We did our first fraud school. It took place on April 20th. We did it with the department heads. Went well. We tweaked some things. It took 2 hours. And even one of the very senior investigators for the DA's office said he learned several things from it. So we're gonna be rolling that out now to the public. Just waiting for my guys to give me some dates, and we'll offer it at in the evening, probably 6 to 8 p.m. 2 nights during each month until we no longer have interest. And we'll also plan on going to some senior centers during the day or those types of groups and giving offering class. I'll let you all know, I'll let the board know when those are available if you are interested. But we've seen an uptick in all of our fraud. Check washing is now a big thing. So if you pay by check, which I still do. If you pay by check, don't put it in your mailbox, run right to the post office or take it someplace that is safe, that the transfer will be safe. They're stealing it and they're washing the check. They're changing the name on it and they're taking the money. We just had one at a roofing company for 35,000. So, yeah, be careful. Annual awards program is May 16th, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Convention Center. That is during National Law Enforcement Week. The 2023 Citizens Academy is August 23rd to November 15th, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Wednesdays. So that'll be every Wednesday if you are interested. We have received training on priority-based budgeting. I had the pleasure of going through it in 2006 as a patrol captain. It is very time consuming. I do know that once you get your database built, it's much easier. So we're going through that process right now. I will, so basically we will run 2 budgets. We'll be running the priority-based budget along with the regular budget. So I'll present both of those to all of you. I got a letter today from Milwaukee and asked for participation in the RNC, which is from the 15th through the 18th, waiting for more. It's all reimbursed. We're waiting for more details on whether or not we're going to commit to sending people there. As far as how things will be run and how things will be led. There was concern when the DNC was supposed to be here but canceled in 2020 on limitations and rules of engagement and those types of things. So we want to be clear, make it very clear to our deputies what they can and cannot do. They should not be confused in a moment of crisis. Jail counts 210 today, so still very, very manageable for us. Any questions?
Any questions?
Good question. At Safe Streets, there was a discussion about Solutions Recovery having somebody permanently based out here for your recovery program. I know that you had a representative from the department there. You were there also. Could you explain that to the rest of the committee about the program?
Sure. Our recovery coaches have been super successful. I don't have I think I may have sent them to you or talked to you about them last time, but the amount of contacts that they have made with addicts in our facility has been phenomenal, and we've had really good results. So what we are asking Recovery Solutions to do is to provide an employee that will manage that program. Not only manage the coaches, which there is a grant for, but also manage the Vivitrol program, which we believe can be used more efficiently and more often. We need somebody that's going to provide that. So we have asked for opioid settlement funds to be used with that contract position. 55 or 60,000, I don't remember offhand what the cost was, but we are going to see our return for sure. Very impressed with what we've seen so far. A very new program.
I just have a quick question. So last year, when we went through budgeting,
Yep.
we eliminated some positions
Yep.
through a variety of means. And one of them was the having someone dedicated in the front, correct?
Yes, property clerk position, yes.
How do we feel that is going without that person there?
You know, there's some lapse in service there, but we've been doing a good job of making sure that, we're meeting the needs of people that are coming to the front desk. We no longer have in-person visitation. It's all by tablet, which has saved that position a lot of work. So it's working. Anytime you eliminate anything and combine, you know, it's not as,
We don't need to revisit it
no,
this year? Okay.
no. But, you know, certainly with the amount of fraud that's happening, the amount of internet crime that's happening, we're gonna have to address something in that. And I'll let you all know about that as time comes.
Supervisor.
Maybe this is a question that's better for the DA's office, but recidivism rates for those in your jail, do you have? Are you able to get any data in regards to that over the last few years?
We did only from our specific 24/7 program, but individual, like just overall recidivism, I do not have that, no. That would be more of a DA's question
Okay,
than what it would be ours.
I figured as much.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
We will track recidivism for the recovery coach program though, just
Okay.
as we did with our 24/7 program.
okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we are closing item 8 on the agenda, opening up item number 9 on the agenda. This is a consideration vote of an ordinance invoking the authority of Wisconsin State Statute 59.1 sub 1, I'm sorry, 0.10 sub 1, for Winnebago County to become a self-organized county. I'm going to actually ask the chair of that ad hoc committee, Supervisor Wise, to come up and just to give us just a quick little overview of what this is. And then if we're having this guy, I want to make sure that we have a formal motion. But if you could just let us know what this is.
Thanks, it will not be nearly. This is from the per diem. Task force, I'm sorry. Per diem task force, we have passed this within the task force. At the bottom of it is there's committee vote, by the way, 5-0. Those are actually 7-0. I apologize for that. But anyway, the
That was
committee-
my mistake. I apologize. You don't need to apologize.
when we started looking at the per diems, just quickly, and we started looking at the per diems and what we thought we could do in October, so that the class in 2024 could see the results of it. Actually turned out that would be false because of state statute. We had to wait until the 2024 annual meeting and vote on a possible per diem change. So that meant that it would be not enforced, and you're not entitled to it until 2026, which is a long way off. So that when we saw that, we go, okay, well, what about this self-organized situation? So briefly, there are 72 counties in Winnebago. There's 52 of them are self-organized on that. So it doesn't mean that it's right or wrong or anything, but there's basically 3 major things that can happen with self-organized. It's not an all-encompassing thing. One of them is per diem. You can change the compensation for supervisors. Another thing that you can do is for when you replace a supervisor, we can set the rules for that. And then the third one is very interesting, is interim terms. Or we could go to interim terms.
Like staggered, guys.
Staggered, yes. So that half of the group was, this time in 2024, might be half of them might be 2-year term, and the other one would be 3-year term, and then it's every other year.
And however it's decided, that's a whole different. So there are three things. We are only considering one, the per diem, and that is what you're looking at today for this. This was sent out to the self-organized counties. Everybody received this copy too, and that's put on by University of Michigan.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve resolution 052/2023, voting the authority of this step 159101 to Winnebago County to become a self-organized.
Second. We have a second. All right, discussion. Supervisor Deputy.
Yeah, I'll be in support of this. It's funny that Supervisor Wise mentioned per diem as, of course, there's that separate task force in regards to our committee structure. And this very much the two issues kind of interchange. And this was brought up at the last ad hoc task force or committee structure. I did speak with the Ozaki County Administrator a couple of days ago. And as they went through a committee of restructuring too, they went down to at least 5 committees. And they had well over a dozen in the beginning. So he explained to me that the per diem thing was actually the very first domino to fall. According to his words, that was the first domino to fall that for them to start restructuring their committee structure. So they went away with the per diems and they went with something more of a monthly salary. This at least would give us the ability to have a little bit more sway in that regard. So because of that, I would.
Thank you. Supervisor Isaac.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question, the authority of the per diem task force to initiate a resolution to make Winnebago County a self-organized county. Because the resolution establishing the ad hoc task force on per diem 191-02-2023 neither explicitly nor implicitly grants the authority to do so. It simply states in the action clause, resolved that an ad hoc task force on per diem structures be established. The authority that the makers of this resolution are relying upon is an enabling clause, the whereas clauses reciting organizational reform that includes per diem structures. However, the action clause only relates to per diem structure. Nowhere in the action clause does organizational reform appear. How can they put forth a resolution for changing the organization when it explicitly doesn't say?
I feel like Corporation Counsel has a point of view on this, so feel free.
So if we look at line 20 of that resolution, the be it further resolved clause states that this ad hoc task force will consist of 7 supervisors appointed by the chair of Judiciary and Public Safety and will report its findings and recommendations to the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee for consideration. That line, that be it further resolved line, to my mind, means that the task force unanimously is making the recommendation that Winnebago County become self-organized. Because that is one of the recommendations. That's my interpretation.
Further,
I've got a copy of the minutes of that meeting, and from my recollection, I thought that it was changed from the committee to the county board.
it was. Are you talking about the makeup of the ad hoc? Yeah, it was changed. Chairman Egan was the one who made up the membership.
So I don't,
But I'm talking about the language in the resolution that talks about the task force being tasked
Right,
with coming to judiciary to make its recommendations.
correct.
And its recommendation was to become self-organized. So we submitted this resolution to the effect.
And that makes sense to me, since this committee ultimately, or even the ad hoc task force, can really not on their own do any action. We can only say from, as a committee, we agree, they can recommend. It's the county board ultimately who would decide this, this action. So I think that falls into line as well. The board itself can decide if this recommendation is valid or not. And I would argue if the board says it's not, then a lot of their work is a moot point. Right? So I understand that this has to happen in order for us to explore all of our options. And I appreciate the fact that this ad hoc committee, or I'm sorry, task force brought this forward because we're not wasting our time. If this ad hoc task force goes through all this work, right? And we get to the end point and the board doesn't like it because we don't want to organize this way, that's a lot of wasted time and effort. So I think it's great that the board itself gets in line with this direction before those further things are established.
And again, I want to point out that this is just involving self-organization.
Right.
If the board chose to review the per diems, though, as you know, by statute, there is still flexibility. This would give more flexibility, but there's flexibility. That would be a separate resolution to, let's say, the board looking at staggered terms.
Right.
Yet another separate resolution, if the board wanted to look at filling replacements on county board in the interim. So those would be three separate resolutions. This is just a resolution for self-organization. But I understand Supervisor Eisen, your point. I have a different viewpoint, looking at the language of the be it therefore.
Supervisor Plum.
From what I understand, this doesn't say what we're gonna do with the per diems yet, but this is an enabling resolution. This
Right.
essentially unlocks the process for us to approach this. So thank you for bringing this forward. I appreciate it. I'll be supporting it.
So
I would also, again, because and I know that the task force was looking at this when we asked, do you want this to be part of the general code? And the resounding reply was, yes, we do want it to become part of the general code. So if you'll see on line 25, they further ordained by the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors that 0.00 of the general code will be created to say that Winnebago County is a self-organizing county. I would suggest looking at it because, and again, as you know, we're in the middle of recodification. We're trying to get things fixed. But may I approach the bench so you can see what I'm looking at?
Yes.
Unfortunately, I don't have a lot. Copies. This is a copy of the first page of the general code. So you'll see, it has general government, chapter 2, the governing body. So under general government, it starts with 1.01, okay, which is general provisions as to officials. I didn't show this. So you see, okay, so chapter 1, general government, chapter 2, governing body. All right. What I would suggest, because it's just my recommendation. I was not comfortable with the 0.00, although I know we discussed it. It might be good to put 1.00 self-governance. Because you will see you have general provisions as to officials. It would be good to perhaps start before you even get to that, to talk about government structure, 1.0 self-governance. Just a thought.
Yeah.
You see? And ideally, although, and I'm sure you guys don't want to do this now, But it would be really good to do it by then under general provisions as to officials as opposed to 1.01, you might want 1.11. And again, we may be able to do that during the
Well, that's what I'm
recodification.
gonna ask, is that something that could be done once we go through that whole recodification? Because if we put a number here with our best guess,
1.01.
we may have to change it regardless of what happens with recodification.
And since you're in that process, if you
What's-
weren't,
Supervisor Eisen.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. There are many, many changes that are coming through on this county board with a 50% of the supervisors with less than 2 years experience. I think it's imprudent to impose upon the supervisory body changing the organizational makeup of the county board, which would include under the organizing statute, staggering election terms, taking away from the county board chair the appointment of vacant positions, and putting it on the responsibility of an inexperienced county board. And third, for the sense of compensation, to change to a salary, statute 59.103, parent I states alternative compensation. As an alternative method of compensation, which is the alternative to per diems, in counties having a population of less than 750,000, as a matter of fact, Mr. Chairman, I have copies of this that you could distribute. Give one
I
to
have
the-
copies, but if,
No, you don't have copies of what I have.
oh, I thought you were gonna give everyone the,
Did I give you the statute by what? I want
am I doing here?
the draft copy back here. Oh, yeah, yeah. Please give one to the corporate council.
Corporation Council.
Oh.
I'm giving you something.
I'm reading from paragraph 2 under 59.103I, alternative compensation. Now, if it's a desire to go to a salary compensation rather than a per diem, counties having a population of less than 750,000, including counties containing only one town, the board may at its annual meeting by a 2/3 vote of the members entitled to a seat, fix the compensation of the supervisors to be next elected at an annual salary for all services for the county, including all committee services except the per diem allowance for services in acquiring highway rights of way. So there is a mechanism that we could choose to follow without having to tinker with an alternative selection that perhaps 50 of 72 counties had elected. But you got to remember, there's 69 counties that elected to have a sales tax, and we didn't. So we're one of 3 or 4, but we're one of 22.
All right,
So I would submit that.
Perhaps,
that
this
it's
would be-
prudent to go down that path.
perhaps there'd be something good for the ad hoc per diem task force to look at. I gotta say two things, just to reiterate what was said. This does not look at changing, how we appoint vacancies. This does not look at those other items. This
Doesn't look at per diem.
doesn't look
It
at per
doesn't look at
diem.
anything. This is just
This is,
becoming self-organized.
right, so this
Structure of
doesn't,
government.
right. This is about giving ourselves the options.
Right.
And then I just have to say, I know I've heard this kind of a pop on with me. We are all equal. We have a lot of supervisors here tonight. We have actually quite a few. I don't think any of them are any better or any worse than me. So when I hear someone say, well, you know, that person's only been on the board for 2 years, they don't know anything. That's what's worse is saying that guy's been on the board for 30 years. He doesn't know anything, really. He doesn't know what the world is like today. We need to stop that. We need to stop saying that I'm better than you and you're better than. We need to stop that. We need to stop it and start thinking and listening to each other and considering different points of view. How many times do we sit and we just talk at each other? I think that's actually why we get a lot of, actually, it was Supervisor Hanson who asked me when I brought up, Harrison, sorry. When we were going through, the consent agenda, and you had asked, is this gonna fix it? And by the way, I think actually it's helped. I think there's another part there, and that is that we don't really talk with each other. We talk at each other. And I think part of that is this idea that I'm better than someone else, or I know something more than someone else. I don't know how we can get around that, but boy, oh boy, I'll sit there and I'll listen to it at the board, but I will not listen to it here. Not as long as I'm chair. So we need to stop that. We need to stop looking at other people and saying, I'm better, I know more than you. And we need to stop that and really start thinking and listening and appreciating each other and loving each other as humans with unique abilities and unique characteristics who can maybe bring something to everything and help. And we were all voted by the residents here of the great county of Winnebago. That, you know, so Supervisor Binder, he's out of Oshkosh. Doesn't make him better or worse than me coming out of Neenah, right? We're the same. Now, he's been on the board a long time, much longer than I. So I think we need to see what he has to say. But I know I've had many conversations with him about my idea.
Point of order.
I am talking.
I asked this.
I am,
I asked this board to stop this triad.
I don't know what triad you're
Triad.
talking about. You're the one who was just on a diatribe. And I was responding.
You are demeaning me in this public forum.
I am not.
I
I'm responding.
simply said that there are.
Fine, we will move on. We will.
No, I'm asking for this
Mr.
Board
Chairman, I call the
to
question
vote.
on the motion on the floor.
Okay. All in favor of calling the question? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Passes. All in favor of this
Now, are we going to amend on line 25 to reference by the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors that 1.00 self-governance of the general code will be created to say that Winnebago County is a self-organizing county? Will there be an amendment to that effect, or do you just want to leave it the way it is?
Any thoughts?
Yeah, we can't amend it, we call it.
Yeah, we called the question. And I think we should keep it, and if we need to change it from, when we go through requalification, we do it, right?
Respect that motion.
Okay, All in favor of ordinance invoking authority of Wisconsin State Statute 59.10 for Winnebago County to become a self-organized county? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. That closes item number 9. We're going to open item number 10.
And that's a resource.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you, Betsy.
Okay, so the reason for this one on the agenda is the county clerk's office had brought to our attention that there's a little bit of an issue in terms of how we have things reflected on the agenda. So if I could please bring up both county clerk, and then if you'd like to speak, please feel free to do so.
I did provide you, or actually Melanie provided you with a hard copy of the actual rules of Winnebago County. If you look under order of business, 6.0, and then you have an agenda that is a standard agenda. And this was just for the April 18th Board of Supervisors meeting. And if you look at the agenda, it does not comply with 6.0 in the rules under order of business. For instance, the Board of Supervisors agenda for April 18th, if you look at like F, which is public comment, but you compare it to what's in the rule book under F, F says communications, petitions, memorials, accounts, and commendations. So a lot of these lines are not jiving. Although, again, understanding it, the past practice has been to use this format.
Supervisor Flown.
Could this be, for Corporation Council, could this be something resolved in recodification, or am I just adding too many things? We need to do a resolution to adjust the language in order to make them congruent in the rules and the agenda.
This is not the code, these are the rules,
Oh,
okay?
Okay.
So you need a resolution.
Okay.
to-
My apologies. I've been
That's
looking at
okay.
something. Okay, that's fine. Thanks.
So I thought that it would be good, at least for tonight, to go through the discussion piece and you compare them to see, I mean, certain ones are right, because if you look, you know,
A, B, C, and D would be correct. And then E,
do you want to say where or invitation? Because the rules are clear.
and actually on the actual agenda, I put them.
Did you want to?
I'm good with prayer too.
When Chairman Egan talks about this, he does say indicate. So, I mean, that's kind of how we've been processing.
That's the wording that's been used since I've been in the clerk's office.
Yeah.
But then for E is where we have adopting the agenda. And that item in here is not until H.
The actual, needed actual approval and the correction of the minutes before you would even adopt the agenda, so I don't know. The April agenda that I sent out was adding the letters to, I think adding the letter is gonna make it easier for me in the open meetings program as far as following through. And that's when this really came to light that the agenda for April is what I followed for the last 10 years. Not realizing we should have been following this one.
Technically, all that needs to be out of order.
Not saying that, just.
No, no.
That makes full sense to me.
That's what we're.
What are you proposing?
To be able to follow the April agenda for the letters that are currently under the rules in the. For the board.
When we, I guess if you want to, if there's a resolution for next month to do this change to the rules, would you like the consent agenda included in the county board rules?
I mean, they kind of are.
They
as
are,
of-
but as published as in the order of business.
I believe they should be, as of the resolution. Yeah.
Definitely.
This is just we just haven't heard it since then.
I would ask, Ethan Oliver to speak, because I know he has a ton of information.
Yeah, so the issue was when we were putting the agenda together in March after the consent calendar passed. You correctly in the resolution replaced E, which was the meeting minutes, with consent calendar. The issue was you have adoption of the agenda following that. So you would be passing resolutions prior to adopting the written agenda. You could do that, this is what the rules were, but the chairman made the decision in April as we were kind of unpacking it to kick it down lower. And the question is just to have the standard order of procedures. It's very common for legislatures. We're on the first order of business, we're on the second, even if there's nothing in that letter to even put it on the agenda. You know, so that's what we're asking. So, but the consent calendar resolution was correct. The issue was the adoption of the calendar of the agenda was below it. And because you had business, it didn't feel, chairman didn't feel, I don't think felt it was right to do that way.
Right. So who would be originating this resolution? I'm unsure on that.
Would be.
Well, we do an agenda item report, just like a normal administration one, I think. And then
Okay,
you would have jurisdiction over whether or not to.
right.
advance it.
So then the department would bring it forward
Right.
with the agenda item.
Right.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. All right, great. Thank you very much. Do you have anything else? Okay, so then we would be looking for this. So I think what we're saying is that it makes sense.
So the proposal would be to essentially match the resolution with the practice,
Yes,
as opposed to.
right. Supervisor Eisen?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I might suggest in preparing for this discussion, I happened to glance through Robert's Rules of Order, who states that the consent agenda should be presented before committee reports.
What,
So that is in conflict with what is in 6.0. And the consequence of that is that this whole order of business probably needs to be taken a look at and reconfigured as we go forward. So if you're going to make some kind of, patch.
Do it right to begin with.
Suggesting, I would suggest that we look at the whole 6.0 and compare it to what Roberts has to say and what perhaps our peer counties have to say, and then bring this back to us so that we could settle this 6.0 once and for all, instead of having to, patchwork.
I would, and I understand that, and I totally appreciate that. I would just say that, again, given my schedule, there's no way I could get all of that done. Especially if I'm supposed to take a vacation, but we could perhaps do it in July. Just to, whatever the board.
I agree with Supervisor Eisen. I think that the last thing that we want to do is keep going back and making changes over and over again. I think it's a little disruptive. And as long as we're okay knowing that we're going to be out of order until that point, but we have been for how long, right? So I know I would be comfortable saying, hey, we've identified the problem. Boy, oh boy, I'm there with Supervisor Eisen. I think that we need to make sure if we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it right. So we don't have to keep going back to it. So is that something, do you think that, Corporation Council and County Parks, that could be done by July, whatever,
The meeting, the meeting in July.
the meeting in July?
Unless we run into a roadblock, but hopefully we won't.
Right, your best guess.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Okay, that closes item number 11. I'm sorry, item number 10, opening item 11, which is a consideration vote for a resolution, amend section 0.0, role of county board supervisor of the rules of the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors to add section 0.4, addressing the use of Winnebago County-owned electronic devices by Winnebago County Board Supervisors and outlining consequences for misuse of such electronic devices. Supervisor Kay Haran. This is one that we had previously heard and had asked for some additional work to be done and then to come back.
Correct. And first of all, I want to thank you all for having it come back. Paul, you said, Supervisor Eisen, you said, let's have it as rule. So we got together and Director Francor and Court Counsel and Chairman Ice, Chairman Egan, and two other people were in the room as we did this. And I want to thank everybody for their help and consideration. And in fact, I would like Director Franco to come up in case she has questions or asks that I don't have answers to that she does. But basically what it is coming up with, as I understand it, at this point in time, we all sign papers when we come onto the county board. This is one of them that gets signed. In my house, it got put away, and it happened very quickly. And so I wanted it to be in the rule book along with other people so that it was something that I could look at and go back to and say, this is how it needs to be addressed. So it's specifically addressing the county board supervisors. It is not addressing the employees, the executive branch, and the county board supervisors. That's the first thing. We are all given a county electronic device at that first county board meeting. And I understand that it is something to be used for county business. That's how I understand it. And it has potentially been used for other things as well. So anyway, that's what it goes towards. We use our county board electronic devices so that we can vote at county board meetings. It is used to explore various and sundry things related to the county. So that's that. Boy, I feel like I'm a pretty precious person and that I have to be accountable for that use. And I want other people to understand that as well. So we've all got one. It's used for Winnebago County business. It's used for county policies, county general code, county board of, we've got an ethics handbook. But again, I put that, I know where it is, but I don't know that I necessarily go back and address it. We need to be responsible, and we need to make sure that they are not utilized in an unauthorized manner. This also goes about saying that if it is used in an inappropriate manner, that we can have a resolution of censure. And at this point in time, I don't believe that that is the case. It is also, and this was brought up when we got together to pull this together, there is $33 put into an insurance account so that if by chance we drop it and it breaks, we will get a replacement, a one-time replacement. After that, we have to pay for it, which I thought was really neat. The next one is that we've got to return them at the end of our tenure, and they need to be in good condition. And if they are not in good condition for the age that they are, then we need to go about paying for what needs to be paid for. So there we are. I would like very much for this to be in the rules. I am sure that each and every one of you, not you guys out here, but everybody has probably read it up in front of me. And I'm ready for questions, I guess.
Okay. All
I'm
right, so
hoping
do I
that
have
I've got somebody who can help.
Yes. Do you have a motion? Let's just, one sec. Do I have a motion for this resolution?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman. I move to approve a resolution amendment section 0.0, role of the county board supervisor of the rules of the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors to add section 0.4 addressing the use of Winnebago County owned electronic devices by Winnebago County Board Supervisors and outlining consequences for misuse of such electronic devices.
Do I have a second? Second. Okay, discussion, Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you. I've read this over pretty meticulously, and I've come to the conclusion that it's verbose. It's micromanaging and putting this into the county board rule. If you look at the rule change, it's 29 lines. If you look at O, that's 15 lines. So it is too verbose. I've taken the time to put a substitute for this, which I would like to submit. First, get a consensus on the idea of this. I think there may be enough copies, perhaps, for one for the speaker.
Yeah, I think there is, yeah.
Okay.
In fact,
I
here, no,
didn't
no, no,
wanna-
I have.
I didn't want to.
If anyone else,
Are
are you okay if?
Yeah, you can let
Okay.
them go for
If
whoever.
anyone else wants to see it, there's plenty. Maybe, yeah, maybe Corporation Council would be a good one.
No,
I
I'm
would-
not gonna.
Okay, sorry.
I would simply state, 0.04, amend the rule 00. An electronic device is issued to each county board supervisor to participate in county board meetings, receive county board correspondence, and research and communicate in performing county board duties. Unethical or illegal use will result in reprimand, censure, or expulsion from the county board of supervisors. And I would make reference to the expulsion from the county board of supervisors, because in a recent email from Wisconsin Counties Association, there was an article which made reference to the fact that the county board supervisors can be expelled from the board, having had due process. I won't go into the details of that, but I'm going to just kind of explain what it says. It is within our authority to expel a member who has violated statute, what is it, 17.1?
So I believe so.
Well, anyway, I just suggest this as an alternative to that, and get your sense and see whether there would be interested in pursuing that with the 1, 2, 3, 4 lines or 5 lines compared to 29 lines.
Right. So perhaps we'd like to get the sponsors' thoughts as well as the committee's thoughts. I'll start with Supervisor Moran.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you. I'm looking at it and I'm saying, wow, we've got a lot of redundancy going on because we've got Winnebago County Board of Supervisors over and over and over again. What I am anxious, I like what you have said here, Supervisor Eisen. I think it's very succinct. It's good. Thank you for that. What I do want to do is make sure that this gets before the county board. And that is because I believe that Director Franker has been working at this with the IT committee since about 2014. And it has never come before the board to be addressed. So it's time. It's time.
I have a point. You bring that up.
With the more succinctly written rule, it doesn't address returning the device, nor does it have the monetary penalty, I guess I'll say. We do have that $33 per year across the county for all devices. That is our kind of self-insurance for breaks, repairs, fixes, or complete replacement if it's not fixable. So each device is also given a life cycle, and if we have to do something more than once during the life cycle, that's when the penalty part would kick in. So this short version doesn't address those two items.
And the other piece I would add is you want to link it to the computer use policy that all of the supervisors sign. Because if you look at it, the computer use policy, part of it talks about employees. It does not talk about board supervisors. And we want it to address board supervisors. So with the return piece, with the money piece, with the linking to computer use, I think this is a great substitute if we just added those 3 items.
Supervisor Hanson?
I like what Supervisor Eisen has presented. I'm more inclined to stick with the original because I really like lines 30 through 34. On this, I think it just becomes more specific to the board. I also like 40 through 42. I just like the expanded. I understand what Supervisor Eisen is presenting, but I like the expanded in more detailed version. And then with that, was this seconded?
No,
Okay.
so well, all we're doing is we're just discussing
Also,
the substitution, which I'm okay doing, and I wanted to get, so there's 2 options. We could either, the author could say, I amend to this, a friendly amendment, no, it's not really a thing. Or we as a committee can make a formal motion to replace that. Supervisor Eisen.
Could we ask the maker, since she has enlisted experts from the IT department and the legal counsel to take the idea of a shortened version and to wordsmith it as the corporation counsel is capable of doing with her paralegals and come back to us, or to bring it directly to the county board with a shortened version of what has been presented to us with the resolution.
So, yeah, okay, yes, let's ask. I won't repeat that, because I think you
Yeah.
heard it.
I personally, I would like it addressed in May. So that means we would need to go about getting this taken care of, doing the wordsmithing on
In
it
a week.
in a week and having it presented to the county board for the, 16th or the 19th, when the meeting is.
It would be the 16th. I have one question. This is more for the authors. If I move to strike lines 23 through 49, but after those final three paragraphs, I cover the return requirements and possible fiscal damages that a supervisor or former supervisor may owe to the county because of damages or loss. Would that cover the bases for what you were looking for, Patty? And Kay as well. Would that cover all the bases of this is what is expected of you, these are the consequences, here are the policies for return and policies for what you would pay for damages?
So are you saying include Supervisor Eisen's amendment and then add those lines?
So, yeah, so the final two paragraphs that are proposed, so lines 51 through 58 will be kept. The remainder of the rule change would be struck, so lines 23 through 49, and replaced with
With this
Supervisor Eisen is proposing. Would that cover all the bases and be, at least in your eyes, cover what the author and the department head were looking for this?
I think that makes sense. The only thing I want to make sure of that is communicated effectively to the county board supervisors is that we are to use this for business, and it's not for us to sit there and chit chat during a county board meeting to say, hey, and why are you thinking like this?
And
So
that's addressed in those lines.
And that's addressed in part of what you've asked to be taken out. And that would be keeping line 30 through 34 in there.
So in other words, are you suggesting use Supervisor Eisen's amendment, keep lines 30 to 34, and then as Supervisor Plum indicated, keep lines
These two, the last two paragraphs.
51.
So I would be really happy with that. And
Can I interject this thought?
Please.
You know, when we are in the county boardroom and we have our iPad activated, it is set for voting. So nobody is doing any hanky-panky on the computer between individuals.
I think there is a concern that Supervisor Haran had about.
It's possible.
It's a very
I-
valid one.
it's certainly possible.
It's a very valid one.
I've seen it.
Well, okay, you millennials can do it, but.
Not me.
And to that point, for corporation counsel, if there is any hypothetical, because I could, if we're in a county board meeting, I could send an email to Supervisor Binder and say, how do you feel about agenda item X? Well, that constitute a violation of open meetings laws. Yeah. So looking back on it, I do think it's important to keep that piece there.
Okay, so I'm a little confused.
Okay,
So-
so basically, the majority of line, as I understand what Supervisor Fromm is saying, 23 through 50 is how he suggested it, is taken out, and we use this. I want paragraph 2, lines 30 through 34 to be included.
So then, if I may, then can I cleanly restate this? We would strike lines 23 through 28. And then also strike, if you're okay with this, lines 36 through 38. I'm sorry, 36 through 42. And then also strike lines 44 through 49. And then keep lines 51 to 58. So basically, we're chopping this up and pasting it back together.
Yeah.
So I guess to rename it, we will strike paragraph 1, keep paragraph 2, strike paragraph 3. Yep. Strike paragraph 4, but keep paragraphs 5 and 6. And then find a place to put supervisor at the substitution.
Well, it would be where, it would be, yeah, where 23 was.
Yes.
So you would basically, so if I could also reiterate, right? So we're going to strike lines 23 through 28 and replace that with the Eisen substitute to amend rule 0.0. We are then going to strike lines 36 through 50. And then everything else stays.
And then I have a friendly amendment for the author's substitution amendment. It's supposed to be rule 0.4. I think you put rule 0.4, which would be amenable to having the rule 0.4 instead of 0.04.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
All right, so let me, I'm gonna do this officially here, so I'm gonna move for the following. I move that we strike lines 23 and 28 and replace it, and I'm gonna speak it, just so we're all clear what we're saying, and replace it with 0.4. An electric device is issued to each county board supervisor to participate in county board meetings, receive county board correspondence, and research, communicate, and performing county board duties, period. Unethical or illegal use will result in reprimand, censure, or expulsion from the county board of supervisors. Moving on, we would then strike lines 36 through 50. Do I have a second?
No, 30.
No, you want to keep.
No, we're gonna keep-
Excuse me.
Am I right?
Yeah, 36.
Am I right? Okay, all right, great.
Yes, correct.
Please don't make me do this again. But I got it. I think I got it, right?
You are correct.
Ah. We have a second. Any additional discussion? Yes, Supervisor Hanson.
I don't, please tell me if this is not appropriate. I have a suggestion. No, wait, we're only voting on that because I have a question on line
We're just
52.
voting on the changes.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Okay, any other discussion on the changes? So let's just clear that, okay? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes.
One has an extra little verbiage, I will take it.
Okay. We have extras.
Hold on, okay.
Okay, ask one more question.
Yes, Supervisor Hanson.
For Patty, Mary Ann, and for Supervisor Haran, something I just picked up on that you said in presenting this, I am wondering if it would be beneficial on line 52, where it says, in violating the rule and pay all costs associated with, and then inserts the word negligent damages to or loss of any electronic devices. They're not even important.
To me, that doesn't seem to be important.
I wouldn't put that
I
in.
think it covers what's there. but
I would
that's-
leave it alone.
Okay, any further discussion on this resolution? Okay, all in favor of resolution amend section 0.0 role of county board supervisor of the rules of the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors to add section 0.4 addressing the use of Winnebago County owned electronic devices by Winnebago County Board of Supervisors and outlining consequences for misuse of such electronic devices. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passed.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. So appreciated.
And can I just ask, so Supervisor Haran, as the author of this, is this also going to be submitted by JPS or no?
It was unanimous, right?
Yes.
I would say yes. If we're
So
all,
But respectfully submitted JPS as well.
yes.
Thank you.
And like I said, if we would not do that if we didn't have everyone say, we agree.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, so very much. And Supervisor Eisen, this is good.
Okay, that closes item number 11. Opening item number 12. Consideration vote resolution. Amend section 8.0 written agenda of the rules of Winnebago County Board of Supervisors by creating Rule 8.35, amending Rule 8.5. Supervisor Colleen. Yes.
Make a motion to introduce the resolution, amending section 8.0 written agenda, the rules of Winnebago County Board of Supervisors by creating rule 8.35 and amending rule 8.5.
I'll second it.
We have a second discussion.
May I just comment on the reason that the reason that I'm bringing this forward is there have been several people that have reached out to me, residents of Winnebago County, that when they go to look at a calendar posted in the system, that sometimes information may not be available. And I thought I saw Supervisor Powers still on, and I think maybe one of the reasons some of the other supervisors are here is because they saw what is on the agenda. The whole purpose of this is to increase public awareness and to alleviate some of the burden that I think happens at the county clerk's office by a lot of last minute or rules. I think there should be a firm deadline of when something should be submitted. For example, I'll just use Mary Ann as an example. If a judge issues an order for her to have a brief by Friday at 5 o'clock, then she knows she needs to meet that deadline. That's exactly what I'm asking for with these rules. I understand that there is software that may bolster this, and this rule just simply solidifies the software that is possibly coming forward.
Supervisor Deputy.
Yeah, quick question. Yeah, I fully support this, but I guess my question is, if let's say it is not, accessible, emailed or posted at least 7 days before the meeting, what would be the recourse then? Would it then, what would be the recourse?
That, is that a question for me or for Mary Ann?
Well,
Whoever can answer, I guess.
then, like, may I use you as an example, Supervisor Differding, is if I were, excuse me, Stafford, if I were to submit something to Supervisor Stafford, he gives me a deadline of May 11th to submit something for June. If I submit it on May 12th, I'm out of luck, then it goes on July's agenda. That's all that this is for. I would be interested in Mary Ann's opinion on amending line 18 as I reread this, because I understand that emergency meetings may come up. So on line 18, it says rule 8.35, the agenda for each monthly committee meeting, et cetera, et cetera. Because I understand open or public meetings and whatever, we need 24 hours, something may happen that we have to have an emergency meeting. This is just to increase supervisors coming to your committee because they see what's on the agenda, they see the resolution, same as citizens. They may,
Once a week.
right, but seeing what's on the agenda, seeing the actual resolutions before you, I hope will increase interactions with public and other supervisors.
Supervisor Flow.
I'm gonna break this down into two separate questions. I will yield to the administration if you look like you had something to say about something in the rule book even.
Yeah, I think the rule's actually written incorrectly. It should be it should create rule 2235, not rule 835. The agendas of committee meetings are under rule 22. Rule 8 is the county board agenda. So there should be a technical amendment there.
And then the second portion of my question is I will ask the clerk, how would this impact your operations? Because I know that you have a lot of different committees with different chairs who all have different deadlines. You know, like for the task force that I chair, I like agenda items to be requested 2 weeks before the meeting. Brian likes to do the same thing for JPS. How do you think this would impact that? I like what this says in spirit, but I'm a little bit nervous about it create some extra strain in your office. And I would be worried about that.
Cassie, I'm sorry. Cassie was the one that did our agendas for legislative and like with Brian, I'm sorry, Supervisor Stafford, working with the agendas. That's what she did. She put out a call for items and then she would work with that chairman. We have a new person in our office who is learning agendas. I think it would be beneficial for her where she's new. We could just get her into that practice.
Sure.
Possibly for each committee. And with the upcoming committee structures, that could change thing as well too, if it would come.
I don't want to know, you're good. Can I just ask a follow-up question, please? Would this create more efficiencies if everyone ran in the same timetable and the same mechanisms? So it wouldn't be, okay, this committee does this committee does that. Would that help in terms of clarity?
I feel it would.
By any chance, Supervisor Hanson, have you had any discussion with any other committee chair on this idea? Just curious if.
No, because I wasn't sure that would violate an open meeting or whatever, so I just had my only discussion really was with Mary Ann on language.
That's fair, that's fair.
Okay.
Yes.
Make a point, and Supervisor Hanson and I have talked about this. The committee needs to know that under 1984-3, under the Wisconsin statutes, public notice of a meeting has to be given at least 24 hours, right? So I understand the policy has been for Winnebago County to provide 7 days notice, but the law in the state says 24 hours notice, and in case of emergencies, 2 hours notice. And that is per statute, that is per an attorney general opinion. Right. I understand transparency is important, but again, by having this, it's going to be conflicting with the law.
Well, it would be
How
more
does it
stringent.
conflict?
Yes,
How does- how
yes,
does it
but it still
conflict?
conflicts,
How does it conflict with the law?
because the
If
law
we're just,
says
if the law says we need 24 hours, Winnebago County is just saying,
you're
we
gonna
need
have
7
seven,
days.
yeah, you need 7 days, you don't need 24 times 7. So, yes, you need at least 24 hours unless there's an emergency in 2 hours. But I'm just saying it's gonna be more stringent than what Wisconsin.
Which we have that ability to do
You
within
do.
the law.
You do.
We just can't make things less stringent. So I think it was Supervisor Defferting who asked the question of, okay, what are the consequences, was it?
yes.
Yeah, okay. And I would just answer, it's the same consequence of anything that we have here. They're really, these rules are more general, I don't know, like gentlemen's rules, but what you would call them. But they're really, there is very little consequence of not following a rule
Well,
other than what's in state statute.
yeah, and I would differ because if we do not get legislation or into our office by noon on the Monday of the week preceding the county board meeting, we will say, you're gonna have to come back next month. That is something my office adheres to.
Right, no, I'm saying there are rules though, like there's very, maybe I'm wrong. But there's not a lot of mechanisms within the rules themselves to say if you don't follow, pick a rule, whatever the rule is, other than state statute. Or maybe what,
Or even your own rules here
Right.
for judicial.
right, that are imposed, but beyond that, there's very little recourse other than going to the board itself or to the chair and say, this is out of order.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
this is the crux of the Act 10 Supreme Court case. So the Supreme Court ruled that bodies can create their own rules. You would have litigation potentially. If a chairman would, the unintended consequence would be, you wouldn't have the ability to amend your agenda within 7 days. And so you would strike the ability to have emergency things agenda. So if it's under the way the rule is currently written, you would supersede the emergency part of the ordinance and your own rules, and nothing could get added. If something were to get added and that resolution were to pass, something would say you violated your rules and vacate that resolution. And so the county executive strongly supports transparency. That's why he wants agenda prep software. That's why he has agenda item reports. That's why he's giving he wants legislation whenever he proposes something from administration to go. The only thing I think you should consider, and he thinks you should consider, is some avenue to amend agendas within that 7 days. It's frequent where we will get something that a grant, for example, has a 60-day component. We have to hit 2 committees in order to accept a grant. So we go, I'll use Parks. Parks finds out they have a grant and it's a 60-day window to apply. In order to apply, all grants have to go through standing committee, P&F, county board. If that comes in and we don't hit that 7 days, we could vacate the grant. And so it happened last week where we concluded something and the committee ended up tabling it, but we met with the vendor and we had time to get it on the agenda before the agenda was posted without amendment. And we could do that. So you would slow government down even further and prevent, and there's potentially some fiscal issues that could occur. So process to amend an agenda within that 7 days would be something that we would encourage amongst the technical fix of getting it into Rule 22, not in Rule 8.
Thank you. Any other thoughts on this?
Quick question,
Yes.
and I will open this up to every supervisor in the room. Does anyone here sit on planning and zoning? Okay, has anyone here served at one time? Brian, I know you have. You guys meet fairly frequently. 3 times a month, possibly more. How would you find that a resolution like this would affect your agendas? Because I like where this is going, but I worry about that litigation item and then committees that meet rather frequently or committees that meet even more frequently. You said you
Supervisor Wise, you are on a committee that meets once a week. Can you speak to that about how possibly this proposed rule would affect the way you get your agendas out there?
We would never be able to do 7 days. Right now, we schedule on Monday. Try to do a Monday every Monday to just get this, because of the deadline we're on that. And I don't know how that task force is interpreted in our rules there or not. If that's a problem, but yeah.
In regards to planning and zoning, sometimes, we also have to, some of the stuff that we vote on is contingent of what the towns, vote on, what the town board votes on. Sure. And they could even meet the day before. So that, they could vote to deny it or vote in favor of it. And if, if they vote in favor of it, then it comes across our desk that they vote to deny it.
Because they don't operate on our timeline.
Right.
They operate on their test.
Correct. Right.
With that, actually, you know what, I'll just call it.
So, Supervisor Eisen.
Yeah. When I first read this resolution, I found that the rule 8.35 seemed to be redundant to 8.3, with the exception that it applies to committees, commission, and boards rather than just the county board itself. And what I thought would be a way to approach that is to replace lines 18 to 22 and just state written agenda rules shall apply to all committee, commissions, boards, and temporary panels. So that just as you have the rules under 8.3, your 8.35, the 8.3 would apply to your county board. 8.35 would just apply to all the committees and commissions and boards and any other panels that are temporarily created. So unless I'm missing something from 8.5.
Supervisor Hanson.
I need Supervisor Eisen.
Would that satisfy your need is to,
Can you restate?
it applies to the county board. And then you can just restate that it will apply to the committees, commissions, boards, and temporary panels.
So if I may, what I'm hearing is essentially that the commissions, committees, boards, task forces will follow the same rules that the county board itself does by doing this action.
Well, I thought that that's what he was driving at, but I
yeah,
thought I
yes.
had, come up with a little statement that perhaps made it less ambiguous.
I'm amenable.
There's
I'm amenable to my.
already in the rules.
Yeah, I'm amenable to that because my whole purpose is to decrease demand and on the county clerk's office and to increase transparency, and hopefully increase community and supervisor engagement. And unfortunately, what's happening is not everything is, I don't think, is being provided to the county clerk's office. For example, someone notified me about an agenda item, but no resolution was posted, so nobody could read the resolution that was going to be discussed. How do you engage any kind of feedback outside of the committee if that's not on the website for everyone to see? That was the purpose of this.
So with that, Supervisor Hanson, are you going to be proposing any changes based on that?
I'm amenable to what Supervisor Eisen said. How do I word that?
And that's what we need to figure out, but I wanted to make sure. So we can do one of two things, Supervisor Hanson. We can pull this, we can work on this, you, sorry. You can work on this and then bring it back at our next JPS, or we can try to do something now. It's 8:30. So what do you, and I'm good with whatever, but I also want to be respectful of everyone's time.
No, I don't want to spend 20 minutes rewriting 18 through 22. I will pull it and put it on next agenda if I could, please.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're going to make those. Yes.
And one other thing too is maybe just get some feedback too from a couple of chairs of committees, probably chair of planning and zoning.
And there's no, may I ask a question then, for Corporation Council? There is no issue with someone who's working on a resolution to reach out to supervisors to get their input, correct?
Correct.
As long as they're
to
not
get
on the
their-
committee.
That's right. We're not to say, and I want you to vote this way.
Right. But you can have conversations.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. It's just getting some feedback. That's all.
Can I just ask something? The 7-day issue, I believe, is with us with the mailing. With the postal system is we're concerned that if we don't have that 7 days, you won't have that packet before the meeting.
Right.
I don't know if we mail them out on Tuesday, when is it? We don't know when everybody is getting them.
If I may speak to that, I think I live closest in proximity to your office than any other supervisor, and there have been instances where it's not your fault. My package just won't show up. And that just sometimes will happen. It's happened once or twice, but it has happened.
And one time I got Supervisor Dowling's package. Somehow I got connected. Yeah, it was like some adhesive or something, so I got mine, and then hers was like attached right to it. So I actually went and I hand delivered. Hopefully that was okay. I
It's
not
not your
deliver.
fault at all. It's just the.
No,
USPS,
it's-
yeah.
It is that's one of our concerns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So I think this is great, and you know, I will say that's why I do that at JPS, because last year when I was trying to, do it, all this different committees were doing, it was hard to follow as a constituent. So I really think it's important that these things are posted. So I think this is a great thing to do. We just have to make sure it's going to work for people.
Just trying to point out, our internal policy for administration items is to Corp Council 2 weeks before the meeting. So we actually strive to go quicker. With so many committee meetings happening, and it's not just the county clerk's office that are touching these agendas. We probably have up to 50 staff members working with all our directors and the committee clerks
Fantastic.
working on these. So the clerk has the easy part of posting the materials. It's the other part behind. I mean, if you think about how much time you spend preparing for a meeting, now think about how the time we have to write and get all those things done. So we appreciate this. If we take a look at this, and we're working on streamlining it to be, we have a very manual process in Winnebago County, and we are hoping to automate that a little bit in the next 6 months.
Fantastic. And can I just say, before we move on, so we haven't closed it entirely, Cassie does a fantastic job.
She very much does, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is just like, yeah. And the whole office is fantastic. Cassie does a great job, but It's a lot for one person, so she does a good job. Okay, we're gonna close item 12. And open item 13. Considering to vote resolution, amend section 24.95 sub B, rules of Winnebago County Board of Supervisors to increase the limit on contingency fund transfers, which may be authorized by Personnel and Finance Committee. That was voted on at PNF. Do we have anyone from PNF here? I mean, like a supervisor? Oh, okay, perfect. I'm gonna ask, do you have any comments on this?
I'll just say that, the day we were there, we had hot water tanks at Parkview, 2 of them were leaking. And we didn't have enough money to fix them, we were like $39,000 short. We only got a $15,000 authorization, so that fell under that. Now it's gonna come to the county board. But if that third hot water tank would go back, then it'd be an emergency. And I think the county exec has a $50,000 emergency. And then the elevator controls came in over, so Mike had to hold those off because we couldn't authorize that either. All this is gonna be part of the consent agenda. And at the personnel and finance meeting, if we'd had that authority, we could have given that money. And these parts could have been ordered and in the process already, where we only can do 300,000. So it's not like we're gonna give away $20 million. I mean, we have $300,000. I've been on that committee 4 years, and the only money we ever authorized was $15,000 for the employee appreciation last July. So it's not like we use that all the time, but it was just a case where we could have used it twice last month for 2 things that we've been dealing with for over a year. I mean, what do you do when the third hot water tank springs a leak? They have to be fixed. We got 98 residents that are living there that need hot water. We got a human service building that they can't use the elevator, and we keep waiting and everything keeps coming up higher. That hasn't been changed in 15 years. So you can imagine what you could have bought 15 years ago for $15,000 what you could buy today. So I just think it's kind of silly to even have it. If you don't want to increase it to 40,000, then we might just eliminate it. Because $15,000 really isn't much to accomplish any projects.
Do I have a motion for this resolution?
So moved.
So moved, okay, second? Okay. Let's do discussion, and I know that you're here to help us with any questions we have.
Sure.
Sure. Right, any discussion? Supervisor Hanson.
I am agreeable to the resolution in spirit. I have looked everywhere. I addressed on Zoom when this was voted on. And I absolutely agree with Supervisor Bender. What I would like to write in to probably line 34 through 37 is that money is limited to building or equipment repair rather than just having an open door. There's nothing, the water heaters need to be fixed. That should absolutely take place. But that limits this to equipment or building repair rather than just whatever might be put forward. I think that should go back to the county board on something other than those 2. I'm sorry, both Supervisor Eisen?
Things are more
I'm
expensive.
waiting for somebody to
yes.
second what you want to say. I don't hear any seconds.
Is that an official motion?
Yes, but I don't know how to write it because I looked everywhere to see if anybody else has written it. I don't know how to write. It's limited to building or equipment repair. I didn't see where anybody else has done that because I agree with Supervisor Bender. There should absolutely, I mean, the elevator should have been fixed if that was come forward. That shouldn't have to wait, same as the water heaters. But if it is something else, let's just say that the county executive's office wants to spend that, and I'm not accusing the executive office at all. But let's just say, Mr. Daigle is not there and it's someone else, that we might have a problem with that fund and how it was spent. And if we limit it to building or equipment repair, then I think that's.
So on that note, do we have,
The director of finance.
okay, let me just, talk about this item here and then we'll,
That's my copy item.
okay, then please.
This is a list of the last things we've used the contingency fund for the last 6 years. All the different examples, and it is not just equipment. There are other things in there that we have used it for software for the Munis upgrade and other items. So this is a list of 6 years of contingency funds used. There are 50 items in 6 years that we've used the contingency fund for. As Supervisor Binner pointed out, one of them was for a appreciation event for the employees. So there's a lot of different things, and obviously you can see we've had $300,000 for 6 years. These are the only things that the contingency fund has been used for. And that is basically gives the P and F. They're very strict. They're gonna review it. So I guess it's looking at their ability to oversee it without the limitation of what's being proposed.
President Close?
So, Director
Well, the
Kaiser,
question,
so I just have a question for Director Kaiser. So it seems pretty clear to me that this is more than just hard infrastructure. This is labor overages, possible other items that could, but it's all subject to approval by P and F, so.
Yes.
Okay, so with that, I'm just going to ask if there, on the item that, Supervisor Hanson brought up, do we have a second? We do not have a second on that one. You're calling the question for the resolution, okay. Before we do that, do we have any other discussion? Because then you can just vote. Okay. All right. All right, so all in favor of resolution amend section 24.95B of the rules of Winnebago County Board of Supervisors to increase the limit on contingency fund transfers, which may be authorized by Personnel and Finance Committee. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passed. All right, that closes item 13. We're opening up item 14. This is a discussion. It's late. More than anything else, I wanted to make sure that everyone saw last JPS Corporation Council put on our desks some information on some clarifications around definitions. What I want to do for next meeting is actually have a discussion on those items. And speaking of having it included, things included in the packets, I wanted to have that included in and it wasn't. So I just want to make that note that we'll be talking about that at a future JPS. That closes item 14, item 15. Discussion, department feedback loops for the committee. I did want to get a really quick perspective from everyone on if we want to have a more structured feedback loop for the departments that come up through JPS, more like on a set schedule than anything else, because it's basically me thinking, oh, we haven't heard from Mary Ann in a while, or we haven't heard from county clerk. So what do we think about that? And then what do we think about the departments we want to see? For example, sorry, I know I asked a question and then I keep talking, I'm sorry.
Yep.
For example, emergency management does a great job of sending out that email, but we haven't really seen them. Should we do that kind of stuff? So I'm looking for feedback. Supervisor
If I
Plum.
may, so it's actually interesting that you mentioned this because at our last task force meeting on committee structure, we had the Fond du Lac County Executive, Sam Kaufman, who used to be prior the chairman of the Fond du Lac County Board. He mentioned that in their committee structures, they have this across all their committees. They have certain guidelines of when department heads report. If they don't have anything significant to report, they can just send an email to the committee ahead of time.
Oh,
But there is some more structure in regards to how their department heads report to their committees of jurisdiction in the end. And the time for the department heads as well, given that we have a lot of time is valuable. So, I mean, I guess we can probably, I know that there are some departments who have monthly updates, like the sheriff and the coroner. And there are some who do not have as many monthly updates like the register of deeds, which reports to this committee. So if we could find a way to maybe categorize, who comes here the most often, who comes here the least often, and then say, do they want to come once a quarter, once a month, what have you.
okay. So maybe what I'll do, if this works for everyone, it sounds like there's some interest in that. Maybe I'll put together an initial idea, and then we can talk through if it makes sense. I know that there's some, it's just hard to make sure that all these balls are being equally, distributed, and want to make sure that we're doing the best work that we can. So we can go from that point in a future meeting. Is there any specific department that we haven't heard from that someone wants to hear from? In short order.
I think, well, I noticed that the DA's office wasn't here today, but I definitely think
You're right, it's been a while.
have regular correspondence from the DA's.
It's a great solid. Okay, I will ask District Attorney Spar to come and update us. That's a great idea. All right, on that note, we're going to close 15 and open 16. Discussion, reading of Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 2023. This is just a conversation. We don't have to vote as it was discussed earlier. This is more about, I wanted to make sure that everyone we do this. But more so, last year, there were a lot of things that were added at the very last minute. And it put Sheriff kind of in an awkward position. So I think as a committee, Sheriff would be appreciative of the fact that we gave him more specific direction on what will and will not be done. As an example, they added the Pledge of Allegiance. Like literally, they just said, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance right there. And it's fine. I mean, we all know it. It's great. Sheriff's point was that the purpose of this is to commemorate what was done on the court steps when the Declaration of Independence was ratified. There was no Pledge of Allegiance at that point. So it's more accurate just to do what the intent of this was, and what Supervisor Wingren's intention was to focus on that. And I actually agree with that. So if anyone else has a different opinion on it, I'd love to hear it, but I think I'd like to tell him that let's keep it just to that. Yes, Supervisor Ryder.
Well, what I can share with you is that in past experiences for the 4th of July, we have had for many years a field grade commissioned officer give a speech at the 4th of July commencement. So that that's probably been gone for maybe not more than 5 years. And on my tenure for the previous decade, and I attended all of these events, that has been a presence at the July event.
Do you feel, based on what you've seen, that added to the
Oh,
event?
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I kind of missed it, and, just don't say anything about it. Just, but if we could invite a you know, a major or a colonel to give a speech in respect to the 4th of July. That would be one past practice.
Okay,
The other is, I don't remember, do we have a color guard?
we did.
Okay,
Yeah, color guard was there.
color guard.
And then we had some people who were reenactment.
We might even have a speech from the chairman of the board or chairman of the Judiciary Committee.
Yeah, I did a little dog effect. You know, and it's funny because I literally, Supervisor Wingren had
Or
something.
the county, in the past, the county executive has had words.
Oh, okay.
And, at 1 or 2 years, I think he maybe even wore an Uncle Sam suit. So,
I can imagine that the current county executive would do this. He would dress up.
I think county executive used to wear a Ben Franklin suit. I think is what he has.
and Fred, anything-
I've got to see.
I think that the public,
Doing that.
the public, I believe that there is somewhat after the 8 o'clock recitation of the declaration, there's a parade downtown Oshkosh. So that there is other activities that people perhaps attend our activity, and we certainly draw a good crowd.
Right.
And this extra speech and amusement would satisfy that audience.
I think that's great. And one of the other things that happened last year, that Sheriff said, no, I'm not comfortable with that, is we had Senator Johnson want to give a speech, and he thought it would be too political. But I think if we have our county representatives there giving speeches, I don't think that would be at all. That'd be great. So,
I would just add the senior U.S. Senator from Wisconsin is a resident of Winnebago County. So he may show up.
oh, he
Yeah,
should. He's a resident. He should.
And I would certainly pleased to hear him speak.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
And I think he is sufficiently sophisticated, you know.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Perfect. I love that idea. I think this might fall on me, which is great. So I will talk to the sheriff about how we can invite major or colonel or a field. I think that's great. And I might ask County Executive Damel to. And yes. And the other thing that it was kind of like last minute is the flags. So I don't know if that's something that the county can actually do versus.
Flags, like.
We had they had purchased, I think it was Supervisor Powers purchased little flags and gave them out. Which is great, but seriously, and I appreciate that, but you know, maybe that's something that the county board or the county could cover. I don't know.
Is that something Supervisor Winfrey did?
He used to do that and yes. And then I think she had asked, what about that? We're like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. And that's why I want to have this discussion now. That's a good idea. And then she ended up donating it, which is fantastic. But I think that it shouldn't fall on a specific person. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
We can ask the vet service office. They may have some leftover from Memorial Day, so I know they order some every year.
That would be
We
perfect.
can ask.
That'd be great.
Or Jacob and I will take them from the Rotary to.
Yeah, we can do that.
Our Rotary Club hands out flags at the parade route, so we'll just divert them.
Oh,
No,
okay.
I'm just kidding.
That works too. Hey, that works. We're in synergies.
Well, and I know of a couple who come dressed as George Washington and Martha, and she sings the national anthem.
Yeah, we did that last year. So
What about
lots of
high
great
school
things.
band?
What's that?
What about a high school band?
Oh, see, now this is getting big. This is turning into production. I'm gonna note that Corporation Council is going to, acquire a high school band.
Hey, don't even. Band geeks, we stick together.
Well, I appreciate it, Ben, because I'm not really, well, I play guitar. All right, perfect. We're gonna close item 16. Okay. Opening item 17, the next meeting is June 5th. Deadline for agenda items is May 22nd. You can forward those to me and we can kind of go through it. The materials will be mailed out, May 26th. Because of Memorial Day, there's again UPS or USB kind of a thing. Okay, that closes 17. Looking for item 18, which is an adjournment. So moved. All in favor? Aye. I second it. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? All right, that passes. Thank you very much, everyone.